7-day series on TDS, and today is the day 6, and I welcome our guest speaker Sachin Sinha ji, who is a course director as well. एंड मैंने जैसे हर सेशन में बोला कि सचिन जी की ही मेहनत है कि ये सेशन हम कर पाए 7 दिन का TDS का सीरीज, और आज टॉपिक भी काफी इम्पोर्टेंट है बिकॉज आज के टॉपिक में जो TDS और TCS से रिलेटेड जो क्वेरीज होती है वो सारी क्वेरीज भी डिस्कस करी जाएगी. And before I hand over to the Sachin ji, let me first give you the introduction of Sachin Sinha ji. Sachin Sinha ji is a chartered accountant having more than 10 to 15 years of experience in the field of the direct tax, and he is the partner of Sachin Sinha and Company Chartered Accountant firm, having office in the Connaught Place. And Sachin ji having vast experience in the field of the direct tax as well as the international taxation. So regarding this, now I will hand over it to the Sachin ji to continue with the today's session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. I'm very much thankful to Study Cafe for giving me this opportunity, because today's topic is very important. So I'd like to request every participant to please focus on the discussion for at least 90 to 100 minutes. And first of all, I would like to wish a very happy birthday to Deepak ji. And you can see that today he is in Khatu Shyam ji, and still he is trying to connect for the purpose of this seminar. So we can see that how sincere he is. So let's come to the topic, because if you take the topic on the first day of the series or on the last day of the series, the best part is if you are on the first day, then you presume that you have a clean slate to write anything, and if you are on the last day, so you can assume that all the topic has been covered, so nothing left for me except few points to be discussed. But I can say that today's topic is very important, because we will discuss 194O, 194Q, 206C, 1H, and other section like 206A, AB, etc. Apart from this, if you have any query regarding any of the section of the last 6 days, please feel free to raise your queries. I'll try my level best to answer your queries. If not, then I'll refer this query to the particular speaker and they can answer your query. So with this, let me share my presentation. So hope this is visible to all.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Great. So friends, as mentioned, this is discussion on TDS provisions. So I'll not say that I'm giving any lecture on this. It's a purely discussion. We will discuss with some case studies. Apart from this, if you have any query, please feel free to stop me at that point of time, and you can ask your query. So not wait to take all the queries at the end of the session, because at that time it may so happen that the time will over and I won't be able to take the queries, or you may lose your interest to raise your queries. So it is better you can ask the queries as and when it arises in your mind. So this is for 194O, that is TDS on e-commerce participants. Friends, this section was introduced in the Finance Act 2020, and it was applicable from the 1st of October 2020. When this section was introduced, there are so many questions in our mind, and of course that still persists because no clarification we have received so far, and still there are a lot of confusions. But in the meanwhile, two new sections come into play. One new section come into play, that is 194Q, which was introduced in the Finance Act 2021. So we can say that 194Q overshadowed the confusion of 194O, but it still exists. So let's discuss the technical part of this section. Friends, as you know that this section starts with notwithstanding anything contained in the provision of this act. So it's a non-obstanding clause. So whatever contained in this section, it has an overriding effect. So if any transaction, if you feel that it may fall under 194O or any other section, please note that 194 will override any other section. So 194 will sustain. 194O will sustain. So let's take a simple example. Assuming you ordered you want to take the service of Urban Clap, and you ordered by e-commerce platform, and the person came to your residence, you provided the service, you made the payment, and the chapter is over. But the question arises, whatever you have paid, whether it's a contract, because you have given a contract to clean your house. So whether it's a contract, if it is a contract, then whether 194C would apply. Assuming 194O is not there, so what would be the position of TDS? And if 194O is there, now it is clear that other section will not apply. So we can say that, okay, in that case, only 194O will apply. But assuming the situation that when 194O was not there, then whether we deduct the TDS under section 194C, maybe, may not be. Maybe because considering the fact that this is a contract service, so we should deduct TDS under section 194C. The other thing is, it is not the contract between the service provider and the service receiver. It's a contract between the e-commerce company and the service receiver. So the service provider is only the person who is rendering services in behalf of that service, in behalf of this contract. So the question of TDS should not be there. So it may be one point of view, but now, as of now, since 194O is there, so we can say that 194O will sustain. It covers all e-commerce transactions, whether related to sale of goods or provision of services. So now I just take an example that 194O will apply when you take the service of Urban Clap. So Urban Clap is providing you the service, as even for the service is for cleaning of your house. It is applicable when you purchase a goods also. So this is related to sale of goods. So how this can be applied? So assume you ordered an iPhone through Amazon, and iPhone company, the Apple company send you the mobile phone, and you made the payment to Amazon. So that is relating to sale of goods. So two examples, one is for sale of goods and second is for provision of services. The service must be provided by the e-commerce participant. So this is not only relating to service. The service must be provided by the e-commerce participant, or the sale of goods must be done by the e-commerce participant. So who would be considered as e-commerce participant? What is the meaning of e-commerce operator? We'll discuss it later on. One exemption which is given in the last clause is that is only for the purpose of individual and HUF, and that too when the gross amount does not exceed 5 lakh rupees. Now a question arises. Let's take a simple example. Whenever you go to restaurant, you might have seen that they have on the entry gate, they have logo of Zomato, Swiggy, Food Panda. There are many others. So if Zomato, Swiggy, Food Panda are the e-commerce operator and the service provider is such a restaurant, then in that case, whether this exemption is available from the each service, each e-commerce operator, or on the or it should be considered for the total 5 lakh rupees. So total, if you see the section, exemption is only available for individuals. So it is very much sure that the exemption is available to individual or HUF, number one, and that too the gross amount does not exceed 5 lakh rupees. So it should be tested separately. So if it is through Zomato, so it's a one transaction. If it's from Swiggy, it's a second transaction, and if it's Food Panda, it's a third transaction. So it should be tested separately, because there is no interconnection between the transaction of these three entities, what I have just taken the name. Now come to the second part. The gross amount does not exceed. What is the meaning of gross amount? Gross amount can we say that gross amount means inclusive of GST? So technically saying yes, because the intent of the law is not to remove GST from the total amount or any other charges if they are taking like service charge, packaging charge, handling charge. There may be other charges also. So that will not be reduced and deducted, and the total amount, whatever amount the e-commerce operator is supposed to pay to the e-commerce participant, that amount is the gross amount, and on that amount the TDS is to be deducted. So this is first part we have discussed. Now come to the second part, where the sale of goods or services of an e-commerce participant is facilitated by the e-commerce operator. So this is relating to facility by the e-commerce operator. So these are very important terms. E-commerce goods or services, sale of goods or services. So we can say that sale of goods or provision of services of an e-commerce participant. So the service provider is e-commerce participant, is facilitated by e-commerce operator through digital platform. So what is the meaning of digital platform? That we also discuss. So it's a new term what we are discussing now. So e-commerce, e-commerce operator, e-commerce participant, digital platform. These are very important terms. Such e-commerce operator, assuming Amazon is this e-commerce operator, if such e-commerce operator shall, at the time of credit of amount of sale or service or both, to the account of the e-commerce participant. So assuming I am the person who's registered myself for e-commerce as a e-commerce participant on Amazon website. So I can say that I am e-commerce participant. Or at a time on whatever service is being rendered by me through e-commerce platform of the e-commerce operator. In that case, I am supposed to receive the money from the e-commerce operator, and in that case, the e-commerce operator, whatever with the amount, they will make the payment after deduction of TDS. So TDS rate is 1%, and again that is a gross amount. So let's take a simple example of Ola or Uber cab, because most of us are using this type of services. So I've chosen for this. Otherwise, you can take another example also, or if you have any query regarding the transaction, we can also discuss that part. So let's take a simple example. Whenever you want to go to one place to another place, you just log on to your Ola app, just put the destination, select the vehicle type, and you just place the order, and the vehicle is on your doorstep, and you get the driver name, the vehicle number, the vehicle color, vehicle model, everything. The details are there. You got the call from the Ola or Uber company that your car is ready. You enjoy the ride, and after that you make the payment. You make the payment either directly to the driver, whatever be the amount, or you can make the payment by Ola or Uber Pay payment app. So you can make the payment by that way also. So if you choose to pay by the app, so you're not making the payment directly to the driver. In that case, of course, the settlement is being done by the company, and assuming the Ola is the e-commerce operator in this case, then whenever they settle the accounts of the driver, they make the payment after deducting the tax, assuming the total amount of payment is more than 5 lakh rupees for the previous year. Let's say a second situation where the user, like the user made the payment to the driver directly, whatever be the amount. Let's say 1,000 rupees is the amount, paid directly. So in that case, how the tax will be deducted by the e-commerce operator? So in that case, the loss is, even though the payment is being received directly by the e-commerce participant, that is deemed that payment has been made by the e-commerce operator, and in that case, the TDS is to be deducted. So this is a very simple example through which we can understand the whole transaction. So what I have just mentioned, TDS is not to be deducted when the e-commerce operator participant is an individual achiever. The gross amount of such sale during the previous year does not exceed 5 lakh rupees, and such e-commerce participant has furnished his PAN or Aadhaar number to the e-commerce operator. So it is important that he has to furnish, but this is a very natural process. Whenever the participant want to register with the operator, these are the basic documents they have to submit, and then only they would be registered as a participant. If there is no PAN or Aadhaar number, the TDS would be deducted at the rate of 20%, that is 206W would apply. Sorry, it was disconnected due to some technical reason. Am I audible now? Yes, great. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Keshavji. Just hold on, sir. Just hold on. Okay. So thank you so much. Actually, by chance, it was disconnected. So the topic is e-commerce. What is the meaning of e-commerce operator? E-commerce. Okay. So what is the meaning of e-commerce operator? E-commerce operator means a person who owns, operates, or manages digital or electronic facility or platform for e-commerce, for electronic e-commerce. So now take a simple example. Assuming one person who is taking the consultancies, who is giving the consultancy service of, let's say, accountancy or taxation, and he has made he is giving, he's rendering these services through his online service, let's say through the email. So question raised by the participant, question raised by the customer clients through email, and that the email the consultant replied through such email. So whether that can be fall under this transaction, or assuming I have our own website and we also ask for the queries on that website. Suppose the query comes in that through that website, and I just answered those queries and charge something. So whether this will also fall under this category? So technically speaking, no. Reason being, there must be three persons. One is e-commerce operator. Let's take a simple example of Ola, Uber, or Zomato, or Amazon. The second person is e-commerce participant, who is selling the goods or rendering the services as per the order placed on such portal, which I've just named now. And the third person is who is purchasing the goods or receiving the services. So for the time being, the tax deduction is only when the e-commerce operator is there and the e-commerce participant is there. But of course, the transaction would be completed when three persons are there. So otherwise, it cannot be, because providing the facility through the platform, owns, operates, or manages digital electronic facility or platform for the electronic e-commerce. So take a simple example. Assuming Raymond is a big brand now, and you want to purchase something, you just visited to the website of Raymond. You saw that there are so many items listed on the website. You just clicked on the buy now and paid made the payment, and the order delivered to your house. In that case, it is not an e-commerce transaction, because in this case, Raymond is not e-commerce participant. They are just advertising their goods on their platform, and you purchase that goods like you purchase from the showroom. You purchase through the website, but they are not providing the e-commerce services. Second is e-commerce participant. E-commerce participant means a resident in India. So of course, the e-commerce participant must be resident of India. E-commerce operator may be resident, may be non-resident. The selling goods or providing services, or both, including digital products through digital or electronic facility or platform or electronic commerce. So nowadays, you can also see that through this COVID time, we generally avoid to visit to the doctor's place, doctor's clinic or hospital. Then you used to generally use Netmeds or Medicore, whatever the name is. Assuming you visited on that, you downloaded that app, put your service requirement, and the doctor, you consulted with the doctor by making the payment online. In that case, the doctor is the doctor is e-commerce participant. The app you are using or the platform you are using is e-commerce operator, and you are the service receiver. So this is the how this transaction can be completed. So this is all about 194.0. If you have any query, because if you want to discuss more, then we can discuss by way of examples, but of more or less the concept I had just discussed with you now. let's come to the next part of the topic, that is 194Q, because this is also very important to understand. If you have any query, I'm ready to take it. So you can write on the chat box, or you can so that I can take the query. Okay, so assuming so far there is no query. Now come to the second part. So TDS section applicable from 1st July 2021. So what I have just discussed, the TDS section which was introduced, which was effective from 1st October 2020, and this is the section which is applicable from 1st July 2021. So section 194Q, TDS on certain sum for purchase of goods. So this is important to understand. 194Q is effective from 1st July 2021, and this is relating to purchase of goods, and this is not for receiving of services. This is only related to purchase of goods. Section 206AA, this is also applicable. 206AB, 206CCA, we'll discuss one by one. So 194Q, TDS on certain sum for purchase of goods. The deductor may be any person. So any person, I mean to say that it may be resident or non-resident. But in this case, the deductor means the person who is buying the goods. So buyer. The payee must be resident. So the seller, in this case, the payee means the seller, and seller must be resident of India. The transaction is in relation to purchase of goods, that I've just mentioned, that this is only for the purpose of purchase of goods. The aggregate value exceeds 50 lakh during the previous year. So we'll also discuss by way of examples what can be the situation, when it can be said that aggregate value exceeds 50 lakh, and TDS at the rate of 0.1% of sum exceeding 50 lakh rupees. So these are the very important terms. So the buyer may be any person. The seller must be resident of India. The transaction that is for relation, for the purchase of goods, and that is not only purchase of goods. The term is in relation to purchase of goods. So we will discuss that what is the meaning of in relation to purchase of goods. The aggregate value, of course, the threshold is 50 lakh rupees. If the transaction value is less than 50 lakhs, this section will not apply. If it exceeds 50 lakh, then 0.1% on the amount which is more than 50 lakhs. Again, few important conditions. The buyer's total sale. Who can be buyer? Because here two terms are important. The deductor may be any person, that is buyer, and the payee must be seller, resident, that is seller. So who can be buyer? So in this case, it says, if you see in generally in other section of TDS, says in case of individual HUF, if the threshold, if the turnover exceeds 1 crore rupees, then that they are eligible, then they can deduct the TDS. But in this case, the situation is slightly different. The buyer's total sales, turnover or gross asset from the business carried on by him exceeds 10 crore during the financial year immediately preceding the financial year in which the purchase of goods being carried out. So what is important? The first thing is the turnover of the preceding year. Preceding year means if you are if this section comes into effect for the financial year 21-22, then whether you are eligible to deduct the tax or not, we will test your turnover for the year 2021. Whether audited, not audited, these are immaterial. We'll test with that part. This section shall not apply to a transaction on which tax is deductible under any of the provision of this act. So if the tax is deductible under any other section, so this section will not apply. TCS is collectible under section 206C1H. So this section shall not apply to a transaction where TCS is collectible under 206C, other than transaction on which 206C1H applies. So it excludes 206C1H. So you may ask the question that whether 206C1H and 194Q can be applicable at the same point of time. So we'll discuss by way of example. So what are the important points? TDS is to be deducted with effect from 1st July 2021 that we have just discussed. For the purpose of purchase threshold, that is whether your total purchase exceeds 50 lakh rupees or not. For that part, we will take the total sales. We'll take the total purchase for the previous year. That is starting from 1st April 2021 to 31st March 2022. It means the TDS is applicable from first, that is for the remaining 9 months. But for the purpose of threshold, we will calculate the purchase for the complete financial year. TDS is to be deducted even in case of advance. So of course, at the time of credit or payment, whichever is earlier. So since you're making the payment, so that it is a time when you have to deduct the TDS. The TDS is to be deducted at the rate of 0.1% of transaction value exceeding 50 lakh rupees. That we just discussed. And whatever amount exceeding 50 lakh rupees, that the over and above amount the TDS is to be deducted on the over and above of 50 lakh rupees. So assuming a situation where your total purchase before 1st July is 90 lakhs. Before 1st July is 90 lakhs. And for in the remaining 9 months, you deducted the tax, the total purchase is 10 lakhs. So the tax would be deducted only on 10 lakh rupees and not on 50 lakh rupees. On one transaction, either 194Q will apply or 2061H will apply. So I'm just deviating from the previous slide where it was said that this section shall not apply where the TCS is collectible under 206C other than transaction on which 206C1H applies. But here I'm saying that 194Q and will apply. If 194Q is there, then 206C will not apply. Where both sections become applicable for 194Q, then in that case 194Q will supersede. So you may ask some questions which is very relevant at this juncture. Because what if the advance is given to seller and amount returned? So these are the basic questions that assuming we made the payment, the purchase is not done, the buyer deducted the tax at time of making payment, deposit to the government account, and later on the deal cancelled, and the sum, whatever that transaction amount was there, that is returned back. So what we will do with the TDS amount which is deducted and deposited to the government account? What if the goods returned by the buyer? So it's a subsequent situation where you made you purchased the goods, made the payment, or purchased the goods, recorded in the books of accounts, deducted the tax, deposited to the government account, and then you return the goods on the basis of the quality check or by any other reason. What if the buyer is a non-resident? Because we discussed here that the seller, if you see, the payee must be resident. So seller must be resident. What if what about the buyer? Can the buyer be a non-resident? So we'll discuss. What if TCS is already deducted on the sale of goods under section 2061H? You might have heard some situation where when this section 2061H was come into force, some of the companies started collecting such tax on the invoice amount itself. So when they raise the invoice, they just mention that 2061H and they collect 0.1% on the same amount, and it means they were collecting that by way of invoice. However, the intention of law was absolutely different, but this has been done by some of the entities. Now the question arises that what if the invoice has already been raised, but the payment has not come from the first part, that means the buyer. Now 194Q come into force, and that person is making payment. So whether this section would apply or not, or in that case where the TCS is already collected, whether the TDS would also apply. So we'll discuss this part also. Whether the turnover, gross receipts, sales to be tested from the business in which the purchase is being made or from all business. So now come to important part: purchase of goods from buyer whose income is exempt from tax. Before this, let's start discussion on the very important part. So this section starts with any person being a buyer is responsible for paying any sum to any resident for purchase of goods, for purchase of any goods. So now the question arises that what is the meaning of purchase of any goods, or you can say that what is the meaning of goods, whether the goods is defined in the Income Tax Act anywhere. So the answer is no. Then from where we can borrow the definition? Can we borrow this definition from the GST Act, or any answer? Can I expect any answer from the participants? Because the definition of goods is not in the statute. So from where we can understand that what is the meaning of goods? Because it may so happen that your understanding about the goods and my understanding about the goods may be different. So in that case, can I expect any answer from the participants? Okay. So the term is goods. So generally, when we understand this section, we presume our assumption is, or we imagine that the goods means the stock in trade of the seller coming is being purchased by the buyer. So it's a very simple example, but now the question arises whether if you assume by way of section 50B there is some sale and you are purchasing a company directly, whether that company can be considered as goods. Assuming you are purchasing shares in a company, can it be said as goods? Whether shares or securities are also goods? Whether because if you see the guideline or the guideline which was issued on 30th of June 2021, it says that if it is being traded by the exchange, then it is not forming part of this transaction. But what if you purchase directly, or assuming you're purchasing the shares of private limited company? In that case, what would be the situation? Whether it is goods. So since it is not been included in the guidelines, so it can be said that yes, it is also goods, and this GDS provision would also be applicable in that case. So assuming you're purchasing a machinery or plant for your like if your capital expenditure, in that case also TDS provision would apply. Assuming as a chartered accountant, you are professional and you are purchasing the office, you are purchasing the books, the complete library of another chartered accountant who wants to retire. In that case, that is also goods. So these are the few examples which to be tested, because it is important to understand what is goods. Because some are like if you purchase some software, whether the software is goods. If you purchase the software on the CD, whether that CD is goods. If you purchase electricity, whether that electricity is goods. Whether you purchase gas through the pipeline, whether that gas is also goods. Suppose you purchase the petroleum product, whether that is goods. So there are so many situations where you of course you have to wait, stop for a while and think over it, that whether whatever the transaction I'm doing, whether this is goods or not. So this is important to understand that what is goods. Now the question is the provision, the purchase of goods from buyer whose income is exempt from tax. What if you're purchasing the goods from the person whose income is exempt? But if you see the guideline, the provision of the guideline, this topic is not discussed, or this part is not, situation is not covered in the statute, but this was in the guideline, where this says that the provision of section 194Q shall not apply on purchase of goods from a person being a seller. It means the seller is the person who as a person is exempt from income tax. So please note, please try to understand that in this case, what they want to say, who as a person is exempt from tax. They're not saying that income is exempt from tax. Who as a person. Now the situation, now you may ask the question that what is the meaning of who as a person is exempt from tax? Or is there any person who is exempt from tax? So we can say that yes, like 196 person in section 196, there are few persons who are exempt from tax, like government, like RBI, like ADB. So they are exempt from tax. Assuming, let's take a simple example that you're purchasing the goods from an entity who is located in SEZ, and the total transaction value is more than 50 lakh, and assuming the basic condition of being a buyer, eligible buyer, you are satisfying those conditions. In that case, whether can we say that this 194Q would not be applied because the person is exempt? So to my mind, so can I expect any answer from the audience in this case? So whether purchase from SEZ is exempt from section 194Q? Okay. So Kesav sir has given a very interesting answer, like Sale of Goods Act. I think this answer is related to when the purchase, when we are discussing that what is the, from where we can understand that this is the what is the meaning of goods. So sir is saying, Kesav sir is saying that we can take from the Sale of Goods Act. But which act? Sale of, if you say Sale of Goods Act, is it GST Act? Is it VAT Act? Because still VAT is there. Is it VAT Act, or is it central? Is it Central Sales Tax Act, which was earlier there? So okay. So I'll just put this point just to ignite the mind that okay, see, these are the situation, and whenever you advise your client, please be very careful about the nature of transaction. Now come to the second situation, that can we say that SEZ, the purchase from SEZ is exempt from section 194Q? So any answer? Okay, so when we, okay, so Kesav sir is again saying that yes, yes means I think 194Q would not apply in case when you are purchasing the goods from SEZ. So whenever we purchase, what is the position of SEZ unit? If the unit, the complete unit is in SEZ, then we can say that this is the company as a whole. But technically speaking, SEZ, the unit is exempt in case of SEZ. So if there is any other income to such entity, that would not be exempt. So whatever transaction has been done through such SEZ unit, like export of sales, export of goods, then in that case we can say that this is eligible unit and that is exempt, and that too for a particular period. But as technically speaking, SEZ unit is exempt. SEZ, in case of SEZ, the unit which is in SEZ is exempt and not the complete entity. But here the test is who as a person is exempt. Who as a person is exempt from the income tax. So we have to see that who as a person means what we just said, and Keshav sir has also given the similar answer on the chat box, that central government, state government, or RBI, ADB, they are the exempt entity. So what, whether this is applicable on fully exempted person? What if the person is exempt, but what if the income is exempt, the person is not exempt? So income is exempt means from the SEZ unit, the income is exempt, but the person is not exempt. In case of, because whatever we have seen so far in case of income tax, there's certain transaction or certain source of income is exempt. Like in case of agriculturist, if they have some agriculture income, it is exempt. But if they have some other income, okay, that would be liable to tax. So we cannot say that the person is exempt from that tax. So what we say, that these are the category, these are the source nature of income which are exempt from tax. Okay. So 206 AA, it is already, it was an old section, and with a one simple amendment or addition, that in case of 194Q, in place of 20%, we will read 5%. And if the second amendment is, if the person doesn't have PAN, so not filed the return, it may be the situation that person is not filing the return because it doesn't have PAN number. In that case, the higher rate of 206 AA or 206 AB, whichever is higher, would apply. AB. This is again a very important amendment. This is regarding, again, if you see, like 206 AA, it is also a non-standing clause. So it also starts with not standing anything contained in any of the provision of this act. So 206 AB and 206 AA all has a similar lining, not standing anything contained in any other provision of this act. Section 206 AA does not cover 192 to 192A, B, 194B, BB, LBC, and N. Why they are not covering? Because N has a similar type of provision already there, and that is related. In that section, it was 3 year, and like in this section, that is 206 AB, they're saying 2 years to be tested, but in case of 194 and 3 years are there. So we can say that the provision, similar provision like 206 AB is not new for us. It was already there in 194N. The payer at a time of making payment or credit to the specified person, check whether the pay is IT filer or not. So earlier, the responsibility on the payer was to test whether the pay has PAN number or not. So we asked for the PAN number. The provider, the pay provide this PAN number to us. Our job is over. Now we have to test that, okay, he is having a valid PAN number, but whether he is filing his return. So this is a typical task which is given to the payer, that you have to test that whether the PAN number he is having, whether he is IT filer or not. So if the specified person is not the income tax filer, then the TD should be deducted at the higher rate. So what would be the higher rate? Like in 206 AA, the provision was as per the rate specified in the act, as per the rate in force, or 20%. However, in case of 206 AB, more or less similar provision, twice of the rate specified in that. So whatever rate is specified in that, we have to make it double. Twice of the rate or rates in force. Whatever the rate or rates as per 232 section 2 clause 37 capital A, it is to be doubled, or at the rate of 5%. So let's just see, let's take a simple example. Assuming you are making payment to a contractor, and the contractor is individual and he has not provided the he has not filed the return. He has PAN number, but is not filed the return. So assuming he is a non-IT filer, now you have to deduct the tax at the as per the provision section 206 AB. Since he is a contractor, so special the rate already prescribed in the section is 1%. Now, since the section says twice of the specified rate, so rate is already specified, that is 1%, make it double, so 2%. And the other rate is 5%, whichever is higher. So of course 5% would apply. Assuming you are making payment to a professional who is not filed the return, tax rate is 10%. So you have double the rate, so 20%. So 20% compared to 5%, of course, 20% higher, so 20%. So this is a simple example. Now it says that who can be said to be a specified person. There are two conditions which is to be satisfied, and these two conditions are cumulative because it is joined with this and. So these two conditions are cumulative. The person to whom the amount is payable has not filed the return for at least 2 years. So 2 years is the test year. And in each of those 2 years, in his case, the total of 26 years, 26 years, the TDS and TCS is more than 50,000 rupees. So if his total income, which is created in the 26 years, is more than 50,000 rupees is the one condition, and the second is he has not filed the return for last 2 years. How will test last 2 years? For 21-22, the due date of filing of return has not expired so far. So that year, that is 2021, will also not to be tested. So we will test 18-19 and 19-20. When the due date of filing return under section 139(1) is over, then we will test 18-19, 19-20. Sorry, 19-20, 20-21. So by this way, we have to test the transaction. So, like a summary, we have just tried to put some situation here. Like the person has in last 2 years not filed the return, and his receipt in credit in TDS certificate like 26 years is more than 50,000. So this is the fit case for this section. In any other case, like 1 year he has return not filed and 2 year TDS, 2 year ITR not filed, 1 year TDS, 1 year ITR not filed, 1 year TDS. So in any other case, he is out of section 206 AB. This is the only section. This is the only section where the case will fall. So how to check? So this is very simple. This separate site which is given through which you can just put the PAN number of the payee, and you can get that whether that person is a specified person or not. You don't need to test that whether he's filed the return or not. Just put the detail, you'll get the output that okay, this person is a specified person, and there's a PDF format. PDF, you have to click on the PDF. You can download it, take the printout, just to keep it in your file, so that while making payment, you have also tested this part. Now the question arises, since the department knows that they are, because this is the department portal through where you can get that whether such person is IT filer or not, or whether such person is specified person or not. Means this information is already with the department, and through the department's portal we can download, or we can come to know that whether that person is specified person or not. So why this responsibility has been casted on the payer? Because see, when the department knows that the transaction, then that this person is non-filer, just write a note, send a notice to that person, and the matter will be over. I don't know why this responsibility has been casted to the payer. It may so happen that through this they want to get at least, since the TDS will be deducted at the higher rate, so the person will definitely come out to file the return, and then the department will catch them. So Keshav sir is writing why the government is shifting the responsibility. So this is actually my question, what I have just posed for you. The 206 CCA is a similar section like 206 AB. If you are not non-filer of a return, then TCS provision would be, the TCS would be collected at the higher rate, and the higher rate would be twice of the rate specified in the act and 5% whichever is higher. So this is a more or less similar example, a similar situation, and where the for the purpose of TDS, section is 206 AB, and for the purpose of TCS, section is 206 CA. 206C1H, read with 206CC. So this is when you don't have PAN number. Then in that case, while applying 206C1H, the TDS rate would be not 5%, 1%. And one situation can be like we have tested 206 A and 206 AB. Similarly, we can test 206 CC versus 206 CCA. So what if the 206 CC and 206 CC applies at the same time? Then in that case, whichever is higher, that rate is to be applied. So shall be collected at the higher of the two rates, provided in section 206 CC and CCA. So friends, it's almost 1 hour. Can we go for some case studies so that whatever we have discussed so far, we can understand by way of some examples? Yes, no? Any answer? Okay. So Pradeep sir is saying yes, Keshav sir is saying yes. So I'm very much thankful to sir who has actively who actually wants to understand the provision of the law by these case studies. So I must say that these case studies are very important to understand the practical aspects of the situation what we have discussed so far. So please be with me for the time being. Okay. So let's take a simple example. A company purchased goods worth rupees 60 lakhs. Why 60 lakhs? Because it is more than 50 lakhs. So I've taken the example 60 lakhs. B company delivered the goods to the project office. So A company is the purchaser of goods. So who will deduct the TDS? A company deduct the TDS. B company is the seller, and A company, while purchasing the goods, given the instruction that please send this or deliver these goods to my project office, which is in Mauritius. So the delivery place is Mauritius, but the transaction is between ACO and BCO. So in that case, the payment made by A company to B company, which is an Indian company. Now test 194Q. Whether in this case 194Q would apply or not. Any answer? Very good. Nishita ma'am says yes. Prakash sir is yes. So I think generally yes. So in this case, because the seller is resident, the buyer is resident, it is immaterial that where the goods has been delivered. Let's say I'm so sorry. There's some technical issues. at my place, I think. I'm so sorry. So we were on this case study. So let's take a simple example that now the transaction is directly between the Indian company and the Mauritius company, and the order is being placed by Mauritian company, and the and the A company is the seller. In that case, what would be the situation? So of course, in that case, since Mauritian company is the branch office of the project office of an Indian company, so we can say that it is a resident of India. So even in that case also, the transaction is between resident to resident. Now come to another example. FCO, this company is in UK. FCO having a permanent establishment in India. FCO purchase goods from Indian company. So the buyer is FCO and the seller is ICO. So buyer can be any person. We have already read that buyer can be any person. So FCO purchase goods from ICO, and such purchase is effected through the permanent establishment. So in that case, what would be the situation? The purchase value is more than 50 lakh. So whether in this case the 194Q would apply or not. So any answer on this? Yes. Kesav sir is saying no. Prakash sir is saying yes. Nishita is saying yes. Pradeep sir is saying not applicable. So not applicable means you mean to say that the TDS provision will not apply in this case. Okay. So as per the provision, any person being a buyer who is responsible for paying any sum to any resident, it means the buyer can be any person and the seller must be resident. So in this case, FCO is FCO in UK having a permanent establishment in India, and FCO purchases goods from ICO. FCO purchases goods from ICO and such purchases. So in this case, the buyer is outside India, but the purchase is effectively connected with the permanent establishment. So if the purchase is effectively connected with permanent establishment, then we can say that such purchase is through India, through the entity which is in India. So if you see the guideline which is published on 30th June, in that case it is said that if the purchase is effectively connected with the permanent establishment, in that case even the buyer is a non-resident, this section would apply. That's why in this case, in this section, this says any person being a buyer. In that case, they didn't say that any person who is resident. So they said any person being a buyer. So buyer may be resident, may be non-resident. And if the buyer is purchasing goods from outside India, not having any place of business in India, only in that case he is out of the picture. Otherwise, if he is purchasing goods from India and he has a place of business in India and such purchase is effectively connected through that PE, then in that case, even though the purchaser is non-resident, the TDS provision would apply. Come to situation number 3, ACO. ACO is an e-commerce operator, purchases goods from B company, an e-commerce participant, which exceeds value of 50 lakh during the financial year 2021. So ACO is a e-commerce operator and BCO is a e-commerce participant. ACO deducted tax at the rate of 1% under section 194O on making payment or crediting to the account of BCO, whichever is earlier. So he already deducted, ECO already deducted tax. So in that case, whether 194Q would apply or not. Any answer on this? Keshav sir, Pradeep sir, Nishita ma'am, or other participants? Any answer on this? So Prakash sir saying yes. So it means yes means sir 194Q would apply. Any other answer? No. Keshav sir is saying not applicable. So 194Q will not apply. Nishita ma'am is also saying one not apply. Very good. So thank you so much, Keshav sir and Nishita ma'am. Because in this case, what happened? It says 194. When we read 194O, it says not standing anything contrary contained in the provision of any part of this chapter. So supersede the 194O has an overriding effect, and 194Q says if the TDS is deductible under any other provisions of this act. It means 194O, that is in this transaction under 194O TDS is deductible, then in that case 194Q would not apply. So Pradeep sir rightly said 194O will apply. Okay, coming to the next case study. A Limited total sales reported in the books during the financial year immediately preceding the financial year in which the purchase of goods is carried out is more than 10 crore. So this is the basic condition which was there to test the buyer's eligibility to deduct the tax, that in the preceding year the turnover should exceed 10 crore. Sales was 8 crore and the advance amount was 4 crore. So whether in that case 194, whether that entity or ECO is eligible to deduct tax under 194Q? No. Very good, Nishita ma'am. Any other answer? Suryakant sir saying no. Keshav sir is also saying no. So yes, because when we test, we need to test by way of turnover. So if the turnover is more than 10 crore, then only he can be considered as eligible buyer, otherwise not. Coming to next example, Mr. A, an individual carrying on business of sale of goods and carrying on profession of rendering services, and the turnover of each business and profession. So total turnover is 12 crore. Out of this, 6 crore is from business and 6 crore is from profession in the previous year, in the preceding year 1920. So whether Mr. A is eligible buyer to deduct tax under 194Q? Yes, sir. Any answer? Keshav sir saying no. Okay. Any other answer? Nishita ma'am, Suryakant sir, Prakash sir is saying yes. So 194, it is eligible for 194Q. So eligible buyer for 194Q, and Suryakant sir is saying no. So he is not eligible buyer for 194Q. And any answer? Yes. So Keshav sir is saying yes, he is eligible buyer for 194Q. Okay. So still two answers we are getting. Pradeep sir is saying no, sir. No, sir means I assume that you're saying not eligible buyer. Any other answer? Okay. So now we'll understand what is the what loss is. So in this example, the turnover from the business is 6 crore and turnover from the profession is 6 crore. So total turnover is 12 crore. However, the section says who can be said to be the buyer. Then it says, for the purpose of this subsection, buyer means a person whose total sales, gross receipt or turnover from the business carried on by him from the business. So will not count the turnover from the profession, will count only the turnover from the business. And since the turnover from the business is less than 10 crore, so Mr. A is not an eligible buyer. So 194Q will not apply in this case. So whether these case studies are interesting? Yes, no? Can I expect some answer? Business is critical. Okay, yes, yes. Great. Thank you so much. So now come to 6th number case study. Mr. A was carrying on business of providing services. So it was business of providing services. It may be a catering service. So business of providing services. The turnover for the year 2021 was 12 crore. In the year 21-22, he closed such business and started business of selling industrial machine. He purchased goods worth 60 lakh. Whether he is eligible buyer? Any answer? No, he is not eligible buyer. Okay, why no? Any other answer? No, he is not eligible buyer. Very good. Any other answer? No. Rohit sir is saying no. Any other answer? Nishita ma'am? Any other participants? Yes, Kesav sir is saying yes, it seems to be. Very good. Any other answer? Because the previous year he was doing services. Okay. So we need to classify that whether it is from business or from profession. So rendering service doesn't mean you are into profession every time. Like catering service is a service, but it is not profession per se because it is not defined in 44AA or explanation to 194J. So in this case, catering service is a business and the turnover from the business in the previous year means preceding year is 12 crore, that is more than 10 crore. So Mr. A is eligible buyer. Coming to next, case study number 7. Mr. X having gross receipts. Mr. X is having gross receipts of INR 40 crore. So gross receipt of 40 crore. Mr. X is buyer. So the test criteria is 10 crore and he has 40 crore. So of course he is eligible as far as concerned to turnover. Mr. X purchased goods from Mr. Y worth rupees 60 lakhs on 5th July 2021. Okay. Mr. X, a non-resident, make the payment to Mr. Y resident amounting to 70 lakh on 24th June. So I think this example is basically related to what if you receive the advance money before 30th June or on or before 30th June, and now you are selling the goods. So in that case, whether this section would apply or not. So as per the provision of this section, whatever you have purchased, so the two things which is important. One is purchase of goods, credit at a time of making payment or credit, whichever is earlier. So if the transaction, that means recording the transaction is before 30th June or on or before 30th June, then in that case, whether you have purchased the goods or made the payment, this section is not applicable. Assuming you have purchased the goods but not made the payment, even in that case, this is not applicable. If you have made the payment but you have not purchased the goods, even in that case, this section is not applicable. So this section will apply only when you're purchasing either the credit or payment, whichever is earlier, and that too falling on or after 1st July 2021. So Ajay sir has rightly said not apply. Thank you, Ajay sir. Now come to another situation. Mr. A carrying on business whose turnover from the business exceeds 10 crore during the immediately preceding financial year. Mr. A purchased jewelry from Mr. B worth rupees 55 lakh. Now he is purchasing jewelry, but let me make it clear that he is not in the business of jewelry. So Mr. A purchases jewelry. It may so happen that for the to gift his wife, he purchased a jewelry from Mr. B worth 55 lakh. Okay, in the fact it is also said that the purchase of jewelry is not connected with the business. Whether in this case TDS provision or 194Q would apply or not. Any answer? So Kesav sir has already said this is personal in nature, so not applicable. Nishita ma'am is saying not apply. Okay, any other answer? Pradeep sir is saying certainly not. Any other answer, sir? Not applicable. Great. So the what is the requirement of section? To make myself an eligible buyer, what is the criteria? The criteria is my turnover for the preceding year should exceed 10 crore. Or so that condition Mr. A has already satisfied. The purchase of goods. The gold is goods. His purchasing from Mr. B, and the purchase value is more than 50 lakh in that case. So for the test criteria to make you an eligible buyer, it is said that the turnover from the business carried on by SSC in the preceding year must is 10 crore or more. But it doesn't say that the purchase is for the purpose of your business. So Kesav sir is saying gold is not goods. So I'm not sure, sir, whether gold is goods or not. If it is not goods, then we can take some another thing on this another item for the purpose of our discussion. But as per my knowledge, it is goods. So the test criteria is that we are not discussing that whether gold is goods or not. So that is not part of our discussion. If the gold is not goods, put some other item which is goods. The test criteria, the discussion part is whether if you are making purchase for your personal purposes, whether in that case also TDS 194Q will apply. So for the purpose of to make you an eligible buyer, the TDS will test that the turnover from the business in the preceding year is more than 10 crore. Once you satisfy that criteria, you are eligible buyer. Now the second test is the purchase value should be more than 50 lakh during the previous year. Yes, of course, you're purchasing the goods with the value is more than 50 lakh and the purchase of goods. So assuming you're purchasing the goods, if all three conditions are satisfied, 194Q would apply. Okay, now the question you may ask a question that whether what if we did not deduct the TDS, what is going to be disallowed? So disallowed is the one part. Disallowed is the one part. The most important part is you will be considered as a SSN default. Number one. Number two, other provisions of TDS non-compliances would be there. Now come to case study number 9. Mr. A is having gross receipts of INR 60 crore. So more than 10 crore accepted. He has a unit in SEZ and his 50% income is exempt from tax under section 10AA, because as you know that in 10AA first 5 years is 100% exempt. For next 5 years, 50% exempt. And for the next 5 years, it is exempt based on certain conditions to be satisfied. So presently, we are talking about 50% income is exempt from tax under section 10AA. Mr. B supplies goods to Mr. A worth rupees 100 lakhs. So it is more than 50 lakh. Okay, so before I complete the answer, I'm receiving. Before I complete the question, I'm receiving the answer. I'm very. It is very. I'm very excited to see that these are the answer is coming before we complete the question. So no, as 50% is just 50 lakh. Okay, so Mr. A purchases goods of 55 lakhs up to 30th June 2021 and remaining in the rest of the year. So total he has purchased 45 lakh after 30th June. So to test the 50 lakh threshold, we have complete financial year. We have complete financial year. So in that case, if you see for the complete financial year, the total transaction is 100 lakhs, but 55 lakh is for the period April to June. So of course, on that transaction, TDS provision would not apply. But for the remaining transaction, since it exceeds 50 lakh rupees from the very beginning, so the TDS provision would apply. TDS provision would apply. This is first part, and the second part is the income of SEZ unit is partly exempt, but this the exemption criteria is it says that it is available when the person to whom such income is arising is fully exempt from tax. So in that case, this benefit is not there. Sir, am I audible or any issues on this? Am I audible, sir? Okay, great. So I think this may be the last case study, or let me see. So Mr. A, a resident, Mr. B, non-resident, as you can see on this image. Mr. C is also a non-resident. Mr. B is working as an agent of Mr. A. So Mr. A is resident, Mr. B is non-resident, he is working as an agent in USA. Mr. C has a permanent establishment in India and having the gross receipts of 60 crore. So total turnover is 60 crore. Mr. C purchases goods from Mr. B worth 90 lakh during the year and his permanent establishment for his permanent establishment in India, but does not know the fact that Mr. B is an agent of Mr. A. Okay. So in that case, how this TDS provision would apply? Any answer on this? Whether 194Q will apply in this case or not, because Mr. B is a non-resident and agent of Mr. A. So Balram sir is saying yes, TDS should apply. Okay, any other answer? Other participants can also answer in this. Little complicated. Okay. Keshav sir is saying little complicated. Nishita ma'am, Shwekant sir, Pradeep sir, I think yes, very good. So sir, see, while identifying or testing that whether 194Q is applicable or not, just keep 3-4 things in your mind. Whether the buyer is eligible or not, whether the irrespective of the fact that the buyer is resident or non-resident, it is immaterial. First, test whether the buyer is eligible or not. If the buyer is eligible, then test whether the buyer is resident or non-resident. If non-resident, if resident, then there is no question of getting it out. So it is very well within the ambit. If it is non-resident and does not have a place of business in India, then it is out. If it has a place of business in India and such purchase is effectively connected with such establishment, then of course this section would apply. Now the third test is whether the transaction value exceeds 50 lakh or not. If it exceeds 50 lakh, then all the conditions are satisfied. Let's apply 194Q. So please make it very clear in your mind that these are the test criteria. If you satisfy these test criteria, your answer is yes. If you are satisfied, if you're not satisfying any of the criteria, your answer is no. Oh, one more question. So should we take another case studies or we can close it here? I'll go with the participants. Pradeep sir is saying yes. Okay, Balram sir is saying one more. Okay, so we can take one more as said by Balram sir. So Kesav sir is saying, what is the conclusion of 10? So in case of 10, let me go back. So in case of 10, we are testing three criteria: whether the buyer has a turnover the preceding year is more than 10 crore. The answer is yes. Whether the transaction value is more than 50 lakh. The answer is yes. Whether the buyer, since the buyer is non-resident, so whether the buyer has a permanent establishment in India. Answer is yes. And whether the buyer has purchased this through the purchase is effectively connected with the permanent establishment. The answer is yes. So in that case, 194Q would apply. Coming to another situation, Mr. A having the gross receipt of 60 crore, so more than 10 crore. Mr. A purchased machinery from Mr. B worth 55 lakh, including 5 lakh as installation charges. This is very interesting, that when testing the total purchase of goods, it says that the purchase of goods exceeds 50 lakh rupees. So what is the meaning of purchase of goods? Whether it will include the installation charges also. So as given in this example, that the total purchase is 55 lakh rupees. Out of this 5 lakh rupees installation charges. Then what would be the situation? Whether it is within 194Q or not? Any answer on this? So payment is important. So Balram sir is saying payment is important. Any other answer? Kesav sir is saying yes, it is within 194Q. Ajay sir is saying applicable 194Q will apply. So the test is sale of goods. Sorry, the test is for purchase of goods, paying any sum to any resident for purchase of goods. So if I'm liable to deduct TDS when I'm making purchase of goods and the value of such purchase exceeds 50 lakh rupees. In this case, the purchase of goods value is only 50 lakhs. So exceeds 50 lakhs. So it is not exceeding 50 lakhs. So it is 50 lakh. Now the second is 5 lakh rupees. That is for services. That installation is falling under service. So in that case, the guideline says, if in such type of situation, if the invoice is for consolidated item, that means goods and services, then we can say that yes, 194Q would apply. But if the item is segregated and says the goods is for 50 lakh, installation is for this much, then in that case, we will take only the value of goods. The similar situation you can find where you purchase the goods and the freight charges is also there, and which is given in the invoice, and you're paying, suppose you purchase goods of 49 lakh and 2 lakh is transportation charges. In that case, the total purchases of value of 51 lakh. But for the purpose of 194Q, we can say that the value is for 49 lakhs. But if there is consolidated invoice, then in that case, it is not possible. And then we can say that the total value is 51 lakh. So TDS provision will apply. So this you have to test. So Kesav sir has rightly said it will be no if installation is separate invoice. Thank you, Kesav sir. I think we have fairly covered everything. One more point we can do. Mr. A purchased goods from Mr. B amounting to 2 crore. So more than 50 lakh. Mr. A had a gross turnover of 6 crores and Mr. B has turnover of 12 crore. So Mr. A is purchaser, and since Mr. A is purchaser, but he is not the eligible buyer because his turnover is 6 crore. In this case, 206C1H would apply because the 194Q is not applicable in this case because Mr. A is not eligible buyer, so he cannot deduct tax under section 194Q. In that case, 206C1H would apply. Let's reverse the situation. 190 in this case, Mr. A has gross turnover of 12 crore and Mr. B gross turnover is also 12 crore. Then in that case, whether 194Q will apply or 2061H would apply. Any answer? Assuming in both the case that the turnover of both the parties for Mr. A and Mr. B, the turnover is 12 crore. Then Surikant sir is saying 194Q would apply. Any other views? Okay. So, assuming the situation where in both the cases and both the parties has turnover of 12 crore and more. So in that case, Mr. A become the eligible buyer, and since Mr. A become the eligible buyer, he has the first right to deduct the tax on the purchase value. So 2061H would not apply, because 2061H would apply only when the TDS has not deducted under any other provision of this act. So since the TDS is deducted on the first instance, then in that case 206C H1 or 261H would not apply. I think I have covered everything from my side. If there is any point, if there is any question, I'm ready to take it. Can I stop share? Okay. Amrit sir, can you please? Hello, Amrit sir. Okay. Any query? Thank you, Kesav sir. So I think there is no query. Okay. Surikant sir saying, what are the consequences of TCS in tax audit if we fail to collect TCS under 2061H? So I think while doing tax audit, of course, we have to report that whether TDS and TCS has been deducted as per the provision of Chapter 17B or not. If deducted, then whether deposited or not. If because the similar provision, because if you see for TIA, it says the compliance has been done in respect of 206C1H. So sorry, as per the provision of Chapter 17B. So if and this TCS provision is also part of Chapter 17B. So in that case, you have to be very careful while applying the TDS and TCS provisions. Rohit sir is saying whether 194Q will be applicable to the buyer even when he is purchasing agriculture produce from Kacha Adatiya of APMC, and he is also deducting tax under 194H on commission being paid to Kacha Adatiya. See, there are two transactions you're talking about. One is paying commission. So for commission, 194H would apply. There's no doubt about it. We are here to discuss the transaction that is relating to purchase of goods. If the transaction is relating to purchase of goods, then you have to see that from whom you are purchasing the goods, whether he is an exempted person or not. If he is not exempted person, then in that case, of course, 194Q would apply. Okay. Surikant sir, if seller to declaration under 194Q from buyer, that buyer will deduct TDS, but still collecting TCS in month of July, what to do in that case? I face the issue. Okay, petroleum companies. So you are right, sir, because in the petroleum companies, they have lot of so many person. So what they have done while selling the goods to the petrol pumps and issuing the invoice, they started collecting TCS on the invoice itself. So if you see the guideline to handle such type of situation, they are saying that in case where the 206C1 has been applied by any reason, then in that case 194Q would not apply. That is already clarified in that guidance. What are the consequences of the TCS? Okay. Purchase minus purchase return. And what about TDS deducted? And TDS to be reversed. In case of discount, please discuss 194Q. If purchase is 56 lakhs and return 8 lakhs in next month. So, sir, at the time of making payment, at the time of crediting the party or making payment, whichever is earlier. So once you purchase the goods, you recorded in purchase the goods, you recorded the same in your books of accounts, and the moment you recorded in the books of accounts, the liability to deduct tax arises. Assuming on 31st of the particular month, the tax liability was there, you deducted the same, you deposited within 7th of the following month. Later on, decided that this sale will not be concluded and let's return this, whatever you have purchased, let's purchase return. Then in that case, of course, you have deposited the tax, and since you have not filed a return, so it will be parked as unconsumed challan. If you have utilized the same and filed the return in the name of the seller, then in that case, you cannot do anything. Of course, the seller will take the credit or whatever way he can answer to the income tax authority, because of course in his TDS 26 years, the sales value will come much will come, of course, the higher than his actual sales, because there are some sales return also in that particular situation. Yusuf sir is saying, please guide us what the steps to be followed while signing the statutory audit report of all companies. The TDS provisions are least bothered by small companies, as transactions are there occasional and sometimes there is no accountant. So sir, if there is no accountant and you are the consultant, so you have a great opportunity for to guiding your client or giving the advisory services, because of course these are the queries, these are not simple queries. In fact, you should analyze the transaction. And to be very frank with you, since I am also a practicing chartered accountant, please refrain to give advice on the over the phone, because it may so happen that when you are in office and busy with some other assignment, the client will ask over phone, sir, I am doing this transaction, whether 194Q would apply or not, whether I should deduct TDS or not. And he is expecting the answer at that point of time. But my dear friend, please don't answer in such manner. Tell your client, please give me the complete fact, either mail or by way of documents. Give me some time, let me form an opinion, and of course my opinion would be chargeable and not free. So you can do this by this way. Okay, so I have taken the answer from the question answer. Now let me take it from the chat box if there is any questions pending. So Balram sir is saying whether 194Q is applicable is already. So I think, okay, Balram sir is saying whether 194Q is applicable in case of 2061H is already applied by dealer of sale of vehicle. I think, sir, in case of sale of vehicle, in the 206C would apply and not 206C1H would apply, because there's a specific section for the purchase of vehicle. So in that case, even 206C1H, neither 206C1H nor 194Q would apply. So Suryakant sir, I have already answered your question. If sir, purchase minus, I think answered. So section 194Q will applicable on the transaction electricity charges and paid to electricity company. I think I've covered this from my side. If you have any query later on, my credentials I have already shared with you. You can please feel free to call me or need guidance on section 195. Yes, Suryakant sir, please tell me. We have some time to discuss, because see, I am in hotel, so I'm nothing to go anywhere, because but you may be in office or you may be in your home waiting for your dinner. I have full ample of time, so please feel free to ask your queries. Okay, so Suryakant sir, if you have any particular question, please write. Or AC purchase advance payment 20%. So what is the meaning of this question, sir? Ajay sir? Sir, actually, I'm not sure whether I can make you. So I have host right is not with me, so I won't be able to make anyone. I cannot allow anyone to speak. Please share your email, and I think I have already shared over the screen. Just hold on. So this is my credentials. You can contact me on any of three, but please feel free to connect me if you have any query, either it is related to income tax or international tax, or whatever we have done since last 5-6 days. Otherwise, I think tomorrow all the speakers are attending. I'm not sure, but if the study cafe can confirm that, I think all the speakers are connecting tomorrow for the purpose of answer your all the queries. Sir, please take session on it. Okay. You want to take a session on 195. Sir, this topic is very close to my heart, and recently ICI has published one book on permanent establishment, in which I got the opportunity to author some chapter, and in the coming week another book is being published by ICI, that is on section 15 CSCB certificates. So thank you, Dilip sir. Thank you for your kind words. Can we close the session, sir? Thank you so much to all the participants for the present listening, for continuously interacting with me, for answering on the chat box. Thank you so much for everything. Thank you to all. And very happy Independence Day to all of you in advance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amrish ji.
Thank you, sir.